Can the right science visuals make or break your funding pitch? Join myself, Nicolle Fuller, and Claire Gosti on our SayoStudio Science Podcast as we share insights from investors at the Life Science Northwest Innovation Conference. Can science visuals attract investors and help you stand out in a crowded market? Let's dive in. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, shall I do the introduction or do you want to do the introduction
Go for
today? Okay. So, I'm Nicolle Fuller and this is Claire Gosti. We're here with SayoStudio today. And we're excited to talk to you all about our day 2 experience at Life Science Innovation Northwest. So, I just realized I had sunglasses sitting on my head. Yeah, it was an exciting day.
Yeah.
I think day 1, we were kind of getting the feel for it. And day 2, we were able to talk individually to a lot more scientists and hearing what they're working on, and also to quite a few investors and hearing panel discussions about kind of the lay of the land, how things are looking for funding and what they look for when they are looking to invest.
Yeah.
And some of the pitfalls that they've seen.
Yeah.
So it was helpful.
Yeah, it was really helpful. And then just kind of more the supporting actors too, you know, people who have lab space to rent or people who have other innovation programs where they're able to really provide mentorship and support scientists in more ways. So yeah, kind of just the whole ecosystem of bringing biotechnology to life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I guess to back up, and because we're a little bit newer to this, we're still getting, you know, our introduction down. I don't think I said that SayoStudio is a science communication company. So that's what we love and that's what we do. And so this is kind of the beginning of us, you know, getting out there more and learning more about these broader communities for the clients that we serve. So yeah, I totally agree. I have to admit, I didn't understand what a large universe there was as far as supporting actors, and that there's a lot of people and companies similar to us in that they are all coming from a science world and there to support scientists, but not scientists themselves.
Exactly.
So we got to talk to a lot of architects, interior designers, realtors who are helping, you know, develop space for these new companies. That's something I hadn't thought of, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
And thinking about how, you know, our niches intersect, you know, just putting art on walls after a space is designed.
Definitely.
Those kind of things. And not surprisingly, you know, we were pretty unique players in this whole ecosystem as far as creating science visuals.
Yes.
There was one other.
Yes, who also had beautiful animation work.
Beautiful animation work.
I should have looked up more names before we started, but I hope that we can collaborate with him.
Yeah,
that was exciting to see. So,
yeah.
And that's another thing. I think that I over many years, and now SayoStudio, we work really well virtually, which I love. It gives us so much more flexibility and freedom to work with people all over the world. But it means that I haven't done as much work getting to know the local community.
Yeah.
And so both knowing, you know, potential collaborators as well as clients here in the area is exciting. So
yeah, and just putting faces to names and just the power of being able to talk to people who are in front of you and know that you enjoy each other and, you know, get excited in that sense. So, which it, you know, was the whole, what was the challenge we knew we were facing going into this, being our first conference representing SayoStudio, and really, really getting ourselves out there and meeting new people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like all in all, it was much more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree.
And considering that we weren't either an investor or a science startup, biotech, life science startup, that we were very welcomed. It felt great talking to people. So
Yeah, I agree.
It's a great group, Life Science Northwest. So I'm glad that we're getting involved with them.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I agree. I think when we recap day one, we left off kind of, well, at least at the end of that day one, we had got to see some of the fast pitches from some of the startups. And so we left off excited to kind of follow up with those people and learn more. And so I think that definitely did set the tone for day two as far as just being excited about the science and the technology being developed itself. And so that was nice. It felt, and I think that was part of the reason why it felt comfortable. And I mean, that's definitely our space. So yeah, that set the tone for day two. And going a little bit more through the posters and reading a little bit more in depth about what people were discovering and developing.
Yeah, and we got to listen to a lot of the presentations.
Yes.
Which was both interesting for the science, and it was fun to look at the style and design from that perspective of their presentations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited. Usually, we have people coming to us so that we know to some degree that they're ready to try to create visuals, work on the design of their pitch. So it's interesting to see what's out there of people that, have, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess that haven't reached out to us, and that have, some of it's clear that they've been working with designers and seeing what that looks like. And then the others, it's, I think, more apparent that they've been doing a lot of this work on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if we're ready to get into some of the advice from the investors, but we got to talk to some investors.
Yes.
So we got to hear broader advice that they had, but also more specifically, when is it a good point to invest in marketing? And the answers were really interesting, I thought.
Yeah, really interesting.
And it's always one of those chicken and the egg things, especially when you're bootstrapping it, or even in your first phase of government funding like SDTR and SBIR. There is some money set aside for business development, but you have to use that wisely.
And business development broadly, not just the visuals.
Right.
So that could go toward a business plan, grant writing.
Definitely.
So really understanding what's realistic and what is good advice for startups at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even, when you've got the exciting, seed funding, again, you're still, everything feels a bit precarious when you're working really hard to get everything off the ground. And yet you do need to present yourself in a way that captures attention, explains, the excitement and innovation of your science.
But yeah, I think somebody commented, at that stage, it might be the first time that everyone's able to get a full salary. As far as everyone working in the lab and developing the technology. So it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of excited about, and especially I think plays into what we're doing here today and into the future, is how can we both perhaps offer services that are doable budget-wise, but more so, how can we offer some education and resources to help people that need to do it on their own at this point? So that's exciting, but both to think about. So I think, if any of you are listening and there's things that would help you out, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
So I have some ideas that I want to start putting together as far as not just design templates, because you can find a ton of those out there, but really how to apply them. I think a lot of times you see people giving pitch decks and the first opening slide is beautiful. And the second one, you can tell that there was a template. And as the presentation goes on, you can see that, people have gotten further and further away from the initial design.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can help give tips on what's important, you know, like, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to bring that up. I really liked your pitch deck ideas, as you saw some that were really nicely done and others that weren't, some that had a really clear hierarchy of information. So yeah,
Which,
just,
you know, makes sense, I think, for, you know, scientists. Like, it's logic.
Yeah.
You know? So as long as we have a framework for people to think through when they're doing this, I think it'll be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And then we talked through also, you know, in the early stages, what's a really good, easy, workable platform to have a really professional, beautifully laid out, to the point web page that could be one page, get through all the information you need people to see. Which is also really exciting to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, thinking through this, that I hadn't thought about before, but speaking to one of the investors, she was talking about, you know, the fact that, of course, as we've been talking about, money is tight at the beginning, but even more so, she's seen quite a few companies who've rebranded to completely change the name, change the logo, you know, say 2, 3, 4 years in, and that it happens quite often because you don't quite know yet. You know, you have some great results, but the direction can change how you're using those results and what that is really going to turn into as a business. And so people pivot as they should, and then branding needs to follow. So
Yeah, I think that was Loretta Little, who's also part of Life Science Northwest. Yeah. And then Richard Gersh had some really good advice as well for us.
They were both very helpful, and it's encouraging to hear them really get behind the importance of science communication.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And Richard Gersh also mentioned, you know, a firm that helped with purely the communication part and just really refining your scientific message and getting it as concise as you can, which is something I think we do along the way.
Yes.
And we kind of do for ourselves and then kind of put that into visuals. So also something that's really fun to talk about. And I think something we can really think about as we think through, you know, pitch deck design and even provide more recommendations in that realm.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and it's fascinating because I myself keep asking the question, like, what do we really mean when we talk about science communication? Because there's so many facets of it. So our focus, of course, are the visuals. But like you said, we do end up doing so much of the writing to support that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think that sometimes designers, especially ones that are farther removed from the science, you know, get a bad rap for, they won't let me have my word count that I need. Yeah. But there is something to be said for trying to really, I don't want to use the word simplify, but refine your messaging to be to the point. And a lot of times, surprisingly, I think that designers become good at that because they are trying to fit something in the space so that it's still legible and readable. Yeah. And gets across the point.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, beyond that, so back to science communication and what is science communication. Yeah, I mean, it's speech writing, it's web content, it's the text, it's the design. And we've talked today a lot about branding for science. And that's one thing that I think when you and I and the rest of our group at SayoStudio talk about branding, it's a little bit different actually than the typical idea of branding.
Yeah.
Because usually, I mean, really, you know, at the essence, branding is the look of your company, right? Yeah. It's representing it. And so that's your logo, your colors, your font.
And
how that works together.
More completely, your messaging, your word choice,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so what we are excited to do is to bring that into the science graphics as well, and make sure those are aligned. And that's one thing that I saw in a lot of the slides, presentations, is that even the companies that did clearly invest in quote unquote branding, they had a great logo, they had their colors set. The graphics could still use a lot of help to be memorable, to the point, concise, beautiful. And, you can do all those things in one image.
Yeah.
But it takes a professional that oftentimes is different than somebody who is just doing branding.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm excited that we have an opportunity to help there.
Yeah.
And, bring those worlds of science illustration, diagrams, design into the graphic design branding world.
Yeah. So. No, that's really exciting. And it's just powerful, and it's not surprising, that some of the technology that really stood out to me had an image that immediately I could connect with their area of research, a brand, a logo mark. And this was a startup that won the fast pitch. And, it really makes you think how that little piece that often feels little or is overlooked or is done in-house and there's a lot of intention behind it.
Done by your cousin's friend.
Yes. How much it can just give you that little edge. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's exciting. But yeah, it was a really good day. It felt a lot more, I think we had our bearings. We kind of understood the whole, layout, structure, what we said earlier, ecosystem. Like it kind of just clicked after day one, and we're like, okay, this is kind of, information that can really help us. This is where we fit in. This is how we can be excited. And so, yeah, day two overall just felt really comfortable and fun and inspiring. And just, great to be face to face with people.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a great place to wrap up, but I do want to bring up one thing that was talked about on day one. So we might have already mentioned this, but something that I forget about when we are focused on the science and often working with academics or people that are moving into the company startup realm from academia, that the investors were giving tips more broadly to life science startups, and that even if your science is incredible and solid and it's going to lead to fantastic therapeutics, you have to start from the early stage of thinking about scalability, deliverability, how is this actually going to get to people, and then really getting across why it's important. And that's another thing that, I think it seemed like a lot of people could continue to work on getting across in their presentations.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I also think that it's something that could definitely be shown with visuals.
Yes.
More so. So yeah, it's fun to have that framework so that when we are talking to people, we can make sure that they're reminded of those things that are important and how we can help show that visually. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I think we did talk about that a lot after day one. After just the really inspiring talk from Dr. Agarwala. But yeah, just having that big picture. And I think you said, scalability and really just how are you able to do this all over again?
Yeah.
Replicate this whole process.
Yeah. Which I know that anybody in the lab is used to, but doing it at scale is a whole different.
It's a whole different thing. Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm excited about exploring new ways to show that, about how it's still, we're in the real world. We're not just in a lab or working with a specific experiment. It's humans, it's healthcare, it's all of those things. So yeah, I'm really excited to explore new ways to do that that don't necessarily always involve photography. And
yeah, we were talking about that a bit.
Yeah.
About how can you bring that in the human element without relying on overdone stock photography of people that are, you know, happy people holding hands as they run down a hill.
Yeah, or happy elderly people in nursing homes.
Yeah. And there's a place for that.
Yeah,
but,
there is.
You know, I think there's a lot of ways and different styles that, again, can, you know, coalesce and support your brand and your style and your vision that can be more hand-drawn, more modern, more stylized, that bring in the human element.
And intentionally address some things. You know, a big topic of this conference was AI and how, you know, it's just a hot topic in general. So I think it's always been, you know, a part of these biotech processes in some form, obviously much more now. So, you know, that conversation was just happening all the time.
Yeah.
And you brought up a really good point about, you know, are people thinking about how it could highlight or kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not highlight, but increase like disparities that already exist. As far as you know, women being involved,
data bias.
So when looking at the big picture, doing it really intentionally and making sure visually those disparities are addressed.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that's something that, especially in the medical illustration community, there's been a lot of discussion around that. And how do we be more representative rather than just using the one stock white male to depict things?
Yeah.
You know? And I think especially for a lot of these diseases, a lot of communities, again, now I'm losing my words, underserved communities are also the ones that are less represented in artwork, in photography, in branding. So it is something to be thoughtful of.
Definitely.
And something that, we can definitely, I think, hopefully add to in a positive way by being more intentional.
Yeah. I think we kind of went on a tangent, but
that was a good tangent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like our tangents.
Overall, the whole experience was really nice.
Yeah.
I think we got to talk with people who are really helpful and inspired, and I definitely feel like energized to go back and apply this knowledge and information into how we move forward and how we can help the people that we serve.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to lead us to more and more conversations about how we can do this. And,
I agree.
It was also interesting just to see what a strong partnership there was with the University of Washington and how many people that were still, you know, graduate students are the ones that are putting forward these innovations and great ideas. So that was exciting. Yeah. So.
Yeah, day 2. It's done.
Yeah, it was great. So thank you all for joining us for this wrap up of how it went. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking more about this. Some of the ideas that came from this. So let us know what you all want to hear about, whether or not you're a scientist or a science artist or just somebody who's a supporter and interested. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please subscribe. And we look forward to talking to you again. Thanks so much.